about 3 years, if not a little longer, since I've done a template video kind of going over the template. And I made myself a little talk track. If y'all have ever watched any of my videos, you know that it's difficult for me to stay on subject. So I actually made a little outline to go over this, and we'll try to do it efficiently and go through it quickly. I want to start with a little bit of who I am for those of you that don't know me. My name is KC Bartley. I own professional home inspections out of Northeast Tennessee. I'm in my 11th year doing inspections. Love the industry and try to help anyone who reaches out in any way possible. I'm definitely, I don't know everything by no stretch of the imagination. Several of you watching this will know plenty more than I do. And as anybody who's been in this for any amount of time knows, if you think you know everything, you've not even touched the surface. Some of these things are systems of a structure are so deep, you'll never know it all. You learn something and multiple things every single day. So that's what I got here. Why a template? Why purchase a template? If you have started trying to build your own, and there's two people that typically buy a template. New inspectors, because it's a great resource to start from, and then somebody who's switching softwares, because the process of creating a template inside of a new software is extremely time consuming. And so about 6 years ago, Mel Edwards, an inspector out of Chattanooga, reached out and said, "Hey, I want to buy you a template." I'm listed on Spector's website as a sample report, and he saw it and he said, "I want to buy the template." And he was the first one to purchase it. And now, 6 years later, I've sold it a little over 700 times. Never had a complaint. So why purchase it? You're new, or you're switching softwares and you want to save a lot of time. A lot of the arguments that I hear, what do I have? It's not going to apply to you, or it's not going to sound like you. And it shouldn't. You're purchasing a template. All of us work on our templates daily. After each inspection, we say, hey, there's a better way to say that, or standards have changed, or it's a little different situation or application. So the templates, it's not going to sound like you, but it will. This is a starting point. We're going to go through some of these narratives here. But what you do need to have are a collection of narratives that are based upon a standard. And that standard can be the manufacturer's installation instructions. It can be code. It can be industry or association standards. But you have to have that reference material as those standards are the bare minimum. You hear the argument very often that we're not code inspectors. Well, we're not code enforcement. If we're not code inspectors, then we're not inspecting for the minimally accepted practices of how things should be installed. And I hope we're all doing that. So any narrative in this report is not my opinion. It's not appears to be. It is based upon a source. And when you report based upon sources, nobody can come in and argue the fact. And it leaves you in the position of being the expert, at least somebody who gave them relevant information, once again, based on that source. Fluff, I hear the fluff arguments. Too much fluff in these templates. That's whatever you want to put in there. This is just a collection of narratives. You decide how fluffy you want your reports to be. That's a business decision. I personally, with limitations, and that's probably what they're talking about, I put limitations in my report wherever needed, not necessarily to only cover my butt, but we have a job to inform our clients of the condition of what they're buying. Limitations let them know at the time of reading the report that we had to exclude something, that we couldn't tell them fully about an area, item, or system. That gives them the ability to continue their due diligence and have that done for the end of the contingency period, for the end of their purchase. It's our job to let them know what we couldn't tell them. So it's twofold. Yes, it protects you, and it's protected hundreds of inspectors who use my template. But it also gives that client the ability to have those things looked at when we can't tell them something. Personal belongings, unsafe conditions, not fully visible, what have you. My opinion, limitations are very important, and talking about that bloat or fluff, once again, there'll be a lot of things inside of this template that you may not want to use. And you can delete it. You can, yes, there's over, I think, 6,000 narratives, 6,500 narratives. You may go through here and say, I don't need that. I don't need this, and you have the ability to delete it. But I'd rather have it in there for you, saving you the time of having to write out a narrative, having to research and find the standards. And then AI. I hear the AI argument. Try to build a template with AI. Try it. It works. You're going to have to research the source that AI is pulling from, which is not always a definitive source. They could be pulling from Family Handyman magazine. We need reputable sources. IRC, IPC, NEC, R507 for DEX, IRC. But, going into, and then, all your claddings and sidings, Hardy references, LP references, ASV references, those all need to be documented, legitimate sources. So we'll go through this. I'm gonna go through the template a little bit, and now I'm including a commercial multifamily and a commercial residential industrial, two separate templates. I could not combine, and I did have those combined for a long time. And there's just such differences between multifamily and industrial retail that I had to create two templates. It's much easier when you're out inspecting, but we'll go over those last. And I'll try to get through this pretty quickly just to kind of show you what we got. But we're in the deck sections, and so I've just came out with version 3.0. It's probably the 8th iteration of the template, and it's simply updated as I update my personal template day by day. Then every 6 months to a year, I'll scrub the KC Bartley template and of any references to Tennessee, myself, my company, having it ready to go for you, including all revisions and additions and grammatical corrections and what have you. But what I've done with 3.0, on top of the revisions, grammatical corrections, all that good stuff, is reminders, and these populate in the app. For everybody that's familiar with Spectora's app, when you go into the deck section, it'll say there'll be a reminders button, and so you can click on those reminders. And I've added a few things that I thought would be beneficial. And here, deck joist spans. I always forget. Hey, we got 2x8s on 16-inch centers. Is that 11 foot or is it 1110? And so I've stuck in right here what that's going to be. Stuck in a little blurb here about 5075. Cantilever can go up to a quarter of the joist span. While we're here in decks, just to kind of show you how my layout is for each subsection. And once again, we're in the decks here. But you'll have your deck information narrative and kind of telling them what you were looking for and why it's common to find so many defects with decks. A lot of times you have those limitations. I do not put the limitations in the limitations tab on Spectora. I don't want somebody to have to click through another button or come to you after the fact and say, well, I didn't know you had to click to see the limitation. So I put those right in the informational section, and always, pre-headed with a bold LMT for limitation. The structural assembly for the reference deck was not visible due to the deck's proximity to the ground. The condition of the deck's framing is excluded from this inspection. Once again, that's one of those things, and this is throughout the report, that hey, if they want to know about the condition underneath, well, somebody in this situation better dig out the soil and get in there and tell them, because I couldn't see it, and it's important to let them know that you couldn't see it. As we go into The defect narratives. I try to categorize everything by the item. So, full eval recommended, deck not constructed to current safety or building standards, cantilevered. This would be when the deck joists are sistered into the joists of the structure and extending out. Well, we can't tell them how that sistering's done, so it just says, hey, the design of cantilevered is excluded as we can't see those framing members and their attachment. You get into live, these are all kind of general stuff. Then we start going into attachment, brick veneer, attached to a cantilevered portion of the home, and still have a lot of, this is from the old DCA 6, which really isn't relevant anymore. It was the prescriptive deck building guide by the American Wood Council. It's a great resource, but R507 has kind of came in and superseded the DCA 6 in some ways, but you'll have a lot of these images. I do get asked quite often, the people will look at my sample reports and they say, are all these images included that I see in your sample reports? They're not. Those are copyrighted, licensed images from Carson Dunlap, Code Check, Dream Home Consultants, and others that I've purchased licenses for, but of course can't share those images with you. Any images, and more than welcome to, of course, purchase those images through those sources, and those are the 3 that I use, but any non-copyrighted images will be left in the report, and there's hundreds. Snapshots right from manufacturers' installation manuals, right there, and the power of images is it negates any arguments whatsoever from sellers, real estate agents, contractors. It's like, hey, right here is where it says that you can't do that. But go into attachment. Then I've got some more deck general, hardware, flashings, and then we go into our ledger and our attachment. Once again, there's another image, and the attachment of a ledger to the structure is the most critical point of a deck's safety. And so I throw in a diagram there. I'm not sure where that one's from. It could be DCA 6, but pre-headed with a safety acronym there. And then you can see, I report in a FIR method, finding, implication, recommendation. And I believe I probably picked that up. I had Charles Buell, and for anybody who knows him, that's practically the GOAT, the greatest of all time. In the inspection industry. Charles and Dylan Chalk out of Seattle, when I entered the industry 11 years ago, those were the 2 individuals, 2 inspectors that I looked up to, that I said, my gosh, the information that they're giving to these clients, that's the information I want my clients to know. And I think I picked up FIR from them, and it's just the perfect way to write a narrative. Finding, what's wrong? What did you see? The implication, what's going to happen because that's wrong? And then the recommendation, what should they do about it? And everybody knows the construction of a defect narrative, but we'll read through this one real quick. The ledger board for the deck was not properly attached to the structure. Ledger board is the most crucial structural member of a deck's construction, as the rim joists and deck joists tie into this framing member. The ledger board is recommended to be attached to the structure's rim joist with 1/2-inch lag screws or through bolts with proper washers staggered in 2 rows, spaced in accordance with the span of the joists. Proper attachment of the ledger board to the structure is recommended to be performed by a qualified deck contractor. So that one's a little wordy. A lot of my narratives, 3 sentences. A lot of my narratives, paragraphs. Let's go out of here. I'll show you the rest of the section. So you got a lot of ledger, washers missing, staggering deficiency, lags undersized, connected to cantilever, installed over wall cladding, ledger smaller than the joist, which it cannot be, of course, ledger undersized, ledger not present. I've seen that. It's crazy. Ledger strip no longer allowed. Joists overspanned. Do I have a joist table in there? I do. So, that one's simple. There were joists for the deck that were overspanned. Evaluation of the joist with repairs or replacement made as needed is recommended to be conducted by a qualified deck contractor. I changed this a lot. Let's go something simple. Conducted. I used to use that. I like performed. A bit better. Performed by a qualified deck contractor. Conducted. It's like an orchestra. Joists, missing improper spacing, wood rot, cut short. So you go all down through these joists. Joist hangers, missing fasteners, improper fasteners, undersized. They've got to be at least 60% of the size of the framing member. Hangers, improper orientation. I don't know if y'all have ever seen hangers upside down. It's funny if you see it. Support posts, water damage, positive attachments, bowed, out of plumb, excessive checking, down-tube beams, girders. All that can be wrong with beams and girders. So is this fluff? Is this bloat? Or are these narratives that you're going to be happy to have that you don't have to write that's based on source? And then you change it. So when you add one of these to your report, some degree of water damage was present to portions of the deck or stair components. It may include wood framing, decking boards, stringers, guards, etc. An evaluation with repairs or replacement of any affected wood is recommended to be performed by a deck contractor. That's fact. You change it up to suit your reporting style, saves you from having to write it, and that's the whole point of purchasing a template, is saving you time, and it will grow with you. But there's decks. I don't know how many narratives that is inside of decks. A lot of them, but I was talking about a lengthy narrative, and some people are probably like, gosh, all your narratives are lengthy, brother. Let's go grading, drainage, conditions. This is a good one. So you got your check boxes. Hey, was it improper grading? You got a few areas in need of attention. Satisfactory, which I might check that once out of 50 homes. Positive grading would be satisfactory, 1 out of 50. Settle backfill, low areas, yada yada. So you check the conditions of the lot grading. Here's your overview. Just telling you, hey, the ground's in contact with the structure should slope away from the structure with a 6-inch drop in the first 10 feet, giving you that 5% grade. It doesn't go into impervious. I've got that here. 2% grade for flat work. You could throw that in there, but this is telling them what you should see. And then you've got to have the limitation. Limited to the condition at the time of inspection. If it's not rained in 3 weeks and you say, hey, yeah, the grading was flat, but I didn't see no water. Sure, at the time of inspection, you didn't, but you've got to let them know that grading is flat or negative, and that you can't tell them what's going to happen in the future. If you get a phone call 3 months after you do an inspection and they tell you that they've got standing water in their basement, your heart's going to sink. If you don't include a narrative like this, especially with that bold right there at the bottom, I highly recommend consulting with the sellers as to any previous moisture intrusion into the structure and reading over the seller's disclosure, which should list any such issues. So when they call you 3 months later, you did your best, you didn't see, it hadn't rained, you didn't see any indications, there's no efflorescence, there's no moisture staining on your poured concrete, your CMU, what have you. You did your best and said, I didn't see anything at the time of inspection. You also told them, hey, it's important to check with the sellers to see if they've ever had any problems with water infiltration. So that's what a lot of this template is about. It's providing the clients the information to ensure they know everything they can. That's the whole point of a home inspection. They want to know what they're buying. What we can't tell them, we need to tell them that we can't tell them that and what they should do about it. Another cool thing that I added, and I saw some other inspector did this in another way. He actually, the building center for your HVAC and water heater age, he actually took screenshots of the data tags in the building center and tried to show the age of units that way, and it was a little cumbersome, and I found just the easiest way to do it. So now when you're in your, if you got a split system and you're looking at your condensing unit heat pump, and instead of backing out of the app and going to Building Intelligence Center and typing in, carrier and then scrolling down here now, you'll simply, I've got all these hyperlinked. So you would just simply click on carrier, and now here I've got to hit a different button where I'm on desktop. But when you're in the app, it's going to take you right to carrier, and it's just a little bit of a time savings. Helps out for sure. And and I really don't know what to show you guys as far as the robustness of the template. It's best to look at my samples, but I did want you all to kind of see, I mean, here went into service equipment, the main panel. You're going to have location, manufacturer, what we looked for inside of the service equipment, reasons maybe you didn't remove the cover, personal belongings, it was in a locked area, had some sharp tip screws, and if you guys ever see sharp tip screws, you can remove them if you want. After my third arc flash and the last one knocked me back about 5 feet, and I screamed like a llama. Does a llama scream? But I screamed like a llama. I do not remove. If I see sharp tip screws, hey, get the electrician out here. Let him put on PPE. Let him do it, because I'm not messing with it. Sealed, painted to the wall. Sure, I'll cut. I've got a razor knife. I'll cut several. You mess up somebody's paint, they're going to be on that butt. So there's your narrative saying excluded. Electrical panel cover was sealed in place and/or its fasteners were painted over. This is considered not readily openable by the standards of practice. This panel cover was not removed, and the wiring behind this access panel is excluded from this inspection. But here, once again, I try to group all defects by what you're looking at. So we start off with the cover itself and all the defects that can be present with the cover. Then the panel overall, inadequate wiring support, inadequate working clearance. I don't have an uncopyrighted image for inadequate working clearance. Components rusted, moisture, doorbell transformer in the panel, neutrals and grounds not bonded together in the service equipment. But you go to panel, then you go to your SECs, neutrals, EGCs, I mean, just on and on. With your electrical panel, then you're going to have, of course, all your sub-panel rules, in sub-panels for wire feed missing, or your grounds and neutrals bonded, or your neutrals not isolated. All that's going to be in here for you. Let's go into the exterior, and I'm going to quit rambling about the template. Exterior is really come down to manufacturers, and as you all know, specialty claddings, they can get vinyl siding right, and they most of the time get brick veneer right. We're always missing weep holes in my area. Should be 3/16 inch weep holes every 33 inches, and you don't have that in my area. So but brick and vinyl are usually pretty foolproof. But you get into any specialty cladding, ASV, fiber cement, EIFS, of course, stuccos, engineered wood siding. You really got to have those manufacturers' resources and information. And so ASV cladding, you kind of got to give them, because we are not exhaustive. We don't deal with adequacy and what have you, and I think that's how a lot of inspectors get out of not reporting on a lot of defects with ASV. But I just throw a statement out there: limitation with the inspection of the ASV. Portions of the home were clad with ASV, also called AMSV. Typically, many insulation-related deficiencies are found with this cladding style that can allow for moisture infiltration behind the product. Any deficiencies mentioned with the ASV siding should not be viewed as an all-inclusive listing, as a home inspection is neither exhaustive nor quantitative. Any and all deficiencies referenced in this report were based on the NCMA 5th edition for complying with ASTM C1780. So then as we go in here, all of these are going to have images because they come right from the NCMA. So you've got your grade, clearance, inadequate, and once again, there's no arguing here. Right there shows that you're supposed to have at least 4 inches of clearance of your AMSV from grade. Flat work clearance, roof clearance, windows, proper base stone, missing flashings, horizontal transitions, your weep missing at either the base of the cladding or at the framing to foundation transition. Kick out diverter, a big one. And that reminds me, I was going through all this ASV, but you'll see, I've got images with all this, missing at vertical transitions. Something just reminded me of something that I wanted to show you guys, and it's where I've stuck. So once again, we talked in the beginning about code references, and I like to know, I can remember a lot of the chapters of the IRC, and of course I can come home and pull it up, but a lot of times I can't remember the exact reference. So let's take like garage to dwelling separation. And let's see where I have this. Yeah. So I've went ahead, and this will be a reminder in the app for me. So you just hit reminder, and just in case, I mean, of course, we all know that the door separating the garage to dwelling should be a minimum of 1/3/8 inches thick, steel, solid wood, or 20-minute fire rated. 1/2-inch drywall applied to the garage side, and then 1/2-inch drywall on the ceiling, unless living areas are overhead. 5/8 inch type X drywall with any protrusions, properly sealed. And so, but I like having this in here just so, if I want to reference it, or if, the contractor's there, I do a ton of new builds and he's like, oh, it ain't right. And I'm like, hey, R302.6. I know it. I can tell him all those things I just said, in the beginning. But when you have that R302.6, about the only one I remember is 4013 grading and a few others. Here's one that, with roof, that gets me often, that I can't remember. Is it chapter 8? Let's see if I'm right. It's gutters terminating within 5 foot of the fence. There we go. Yep, chapter 8. R801.3 gutter discharge. In areas where expansive soils or collapsible soils are known to exist, all dwellings shall have a controlled method of water disposal from roofs that will collect and discharge roof drainage to the ground surface not less than 5 feet from foundation walls or to an approved drainage system. Man, these new builds, if there's a splash block there, other than just a downspout elbow, if there's a splash block, I'm tickled to death because they don't do that. But they should be discharging this 5 feet away. We have predominantly red clay in our area. It's an expansive soil, and so I'm always going to stick in my report. And let's go to the narrative itself. Gutters, downspouts terminating near foundation. Hey, I do have an image in there. It's from InterNACHI. So it's copyrighted, but if you're an InterNACHI member, hey, Nick says, wear it out. There were downspouts present that discharged within 5 feet of the structure's foundation. Current standards, I never mentioned code, require downspouts to be diverted at least 5 feet from the foundation to prevent the surrounding soil from becoming saturated. Saturated soil can allow water and moisture to enter foundation areas, and in extreme cases allow for settlement. Properly extending all downspouts at least 5 foot away from the structure is recommended to be performed by a gutter contractor or other qualified person. There's that FIR mentality that's throughout this report, and it's based on fact. If you inspect in that way, you'll never look back, and you'll be respected by your clients, the builders. They might not like you, the builders, but they're going to know that you're speaking on standards, facts. So guys, that's it. I mean, I could go through this sucker. Some of you who, are going to be updating to 3.0, the layout of this template. For anybody just now purchasing it, water, moisture, and condensation, and in cracking, settlement, and movement. You see these 2 sections here. Those are, in my opinion, the most concerning things you can find with a structure. They're kind of open-ended fixes that there's not a immediate price tag you can put on the correction. And so I like to draw special emphasis to those instead of having the items that relate to those defects scattered throughout the report. So if I see a leak, I want to go right into WMC, and right there's my leak, and it puts it all together. Same thing with cracking, settlement, and movement. I don't want to go into the interior area and exterior walls and foundation. I want that all in one section so I know where it is, and I can put the applicable disclaimers and recommendations. So in these sections, you simply go into CSM, and right here I give a little explanation of what CSMs are. But then, hey, where did you see the CSM? Exterior walls, interior areas, in the living areas, you have cracking on drywalls, you have sloping floor, what are you seeing? And then your foundation walls. And what this does, how I have these written out, I'll have within normal tolerances, borderline, and outside of tolerances. But regardless, this puts it back on to the buyers or sellers to say it's not an issue. Now, hairline crack, not an issue. I want them to put a crack gauge, a crack monitor on there and watch it. I'm not going to say observe. I'm going to say, hey, let's just look. I probably got a little picture of a crack monitor. I do. Cracking was present on the reference foundation walls that was considered to be within normal tolerances at the time of inspection, although the cracks contained no lateral displacement or an excessive crack width. Determining the acceptability of any crack is beyond the scope of a home inspection, because it is. It's highly recommended to have a qualified professional install crack monitors at any locations on the foundation walls that are cracked, so the cracks can be monitored for further movement. Right here. For more information on any cracks, an evaluation is recommended to be performed by a structural engineer. Please read the information and limitations in regards to cracking above. Fluff. And then, so in this section, it's top right here, it's just going to say, hey, because this, maybe somebody did a better fact base than I, but the way I do it, foundation walls were inspected for cracking, settlement, and movement of visible portions, and any such conditions will be listed in this report if visibly present. CSMs are reported on by their presence and visual condition as existing at the time of inspection only. Determining the acceptability of foundation CSMs is beyond the scope of a home inspection, as determining a crack's cause, recent activity, and severity requires invasive inspections, quantitative measurements, and consultation with the sellers regarding its history. A major limiting factor is the recent activity of cracking. It is not possible during a home inspection to determine if a crack has been present for years or longer with no continual movement, or if it's still active. And honestly, no one can truly tell you that a crack is not active other than time itself. Most structural engineers I've seen that evaluate cracking will recommend monitoring the area for further movement over a period of time. It is recommended to consult with the sellers regarding any cracking activity and have an evaluation conducted, change that to performed, by a foundation contractor or structural engineer. Foundation contractors can quote repairs on basically any crack, no matter their severity. If you want any cracks repaired and or to ensure no further movement occurs, stabilization, you are advised to obtain quotes from a foundation contractor before the end of your inspection contingency period. Any references to cracks on foundation walls below grade will need to be sealed at a minimum by a qualified person to prevent the possibility of moisture-water infiltration, regardless of the size of the crack. Is that a lot of fluff? It's what I want my clients to know. It's I don't want them coming back to me, and if you've not done this, it will happen. I've done an inspection 2 years ago. Crack was hairline. Did that same house 2 years later, that crack's 1/4 inch. Right there tells them, hey, I can only tell you what I see at the time of inspection. It can be stabilized if you want. I can't tell you what it's going to do, but nobody can. Time itself and God. So that's an important limitation narrative that gives the client information as to what we could and could not tell. So that's why all the fluff. Guys, I hope I did a fair job of going through the template and showing you kind of what it consists of. I mean, you've seen, now you kind of see why 6,500 narratives. It's just a lot of information, and it's what I've learned over the past 11 years and through all the certifications and trainings and CEs that we all do. I've tried to do as much as I can and learn as much as I can from people much smarter than myself. Let's go into the commercials real quick, and we're going to give a caveat with these commercials. You notice they're free. There's a reason they're free. These are built on an old version of my residential. And I do a fair bit of commercial inspections, so I'm constantly updating these commercial templates. But be forewarned, there is still multiple references to home. I'm changing everything over to structure. Anywhere I see home, I'm trying to change it to structure so it can be applicable to both, commercial and residential. What these do for you. Now, yes, once again, they're built on the backbone of an old version of my residential. They are CCPIA ComSop compliant. So in each, let's go into grounds. Let's see if I've got it in grounds. There we go. This is right from the ComSop, showing what we were looking for, the ComSop standards. With the ComSop, you have research and interviews. And so in the inspection information, I will have in here, where do I have it? If Where's it at? Too many narratives. If research and interviews were performed, I charge $1,000 for research, pulling permits, pulling information, pulling maintenance records, interviewing site supervisor, maintenance supervisor, what have you, and nobody pays that. So I don't do research and interviews, and so I exclude those, and they need to be excluded if you're following the CompSop. I have some life safety built out, fire alarms, sprinkler systems, portable extinguishers. I've got egress, direction of egress, doors egress. Other things built out in here. It needs more, but it's once again, it's that good start for you. It's a backbone, safety signage, smoke alarms, CO. I've got some good low slope roof comments in here. I do quite a bit of, like I said, of commercial. So I've got some low slope roofing, but it is more of a backbone. And why the two, I hit on it in the beginning. Retail and industrial is just a different animal from multifamily. Multifamily is so similar, has so much in common with residential, other than separation between units, your fire separation, depending on if it's a townhouse or duplex wouldn't apply because that's only going to be 2 in a unit. But I do have the multifamily fire separation comments in here and what have you. So yes, they're free. Yes, they follow CCPIA's CompSop. Yes, I use them often, but they are a start. They are going to require some work. I use them, and I'm a perfectionist, but it's a work in progress that will never end, just like the residential and all the others. Guys, I hope this answered some questions for you. You all know this, but if I can ever help you in any way, answer any questions, you feel free to reach out to me. This won't age well because it's coming up in a couple weeks, but if anybody's going to the InterNACHI conference, say hello. Shake a hand. I'll be at one of the booths to be announced coming up soon. And I'll also have an announcement and a video coming up soon as far as template conversion. Some of you guys already know. I'm building my template out in Scribeware as well. So be on the lookout for that. Scribeware has some amazing tools, and I hope you all have a great day, and I hope this was helpful and maybe answered some questions. See you next time. Bye-bye.